All right. Um, so well, there are several several topics, I guess, to cover on this. One is creating funds. We also have how to close funds and the process around that, as it's, as you can see it in Salesforce. Also knowing what a lot of the fields are for, and the roles of people in the different roles people can play and how you assign those, and how external people like fund advisors who are responsible for the fund can log in and see information about their fund and their transactions as well. I think I'll start at with the beginning, I guess, with creating funds. So funds in Salesforce. Let me make sure my screen is being shared. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Funds in Salesforce are represented as classifications in NetSuite. I believe that's what they're called. There should be a one-to-one relationship there. Funds that are open, there's a status on funds, and they'll be open. Ones that are open in Salesforce would also automatically create the classification for them in NetSuite. So the place to start when we want to create a new fund is in Salesforce. So,
hey, Peter.
Yep.
Just want to point out that there are only a select group of people who can create funds, and we've determined that list. I'll be supplying that information a little later, but for now, there are only a small group of people who can create them, and then another group of people who can modify some fields on them.
That's right. Does that mean you don't want to go through how to create them?
No, please proceed.
Okay. Yeah, so only a few people can actually create funds, and nobody else, other people don't have the permissions to create new funds. But if you go to the fund tab, you'll see lists of your recent funds that you've looked at here, and we've got other a pick list at the top here, just like on all the other tabs, to look at different kinds of different lists of funds. I'm going to be doing this work in the sandbox, which you can see up here on the upper right. So this is basically test data, but it is based on real data as of several weeks back. So you'll see here's a list of funds. There's something like at the bottom down here, you'll see there's about 1,800 funds in here. A lot of them are open, but some of them are not. If we sort here, you can see some of them are only in a proposed status, which means they're not open yet. We can skip to the end. There's probably a lot of them. Here's a lot of funds that are closed. So closed funds can't be used for transactions. Let's go over here and we will create a new fund. So I have permissions to create a new fund. I'll go through and talk about what a lot of these fields are for, which is certainly going to be necessary for people who are creating the funds, but it's also going to be pretty informational for people who are not, so they understand what all this information is for. So obviously you'll need to start with a fund name. I'm going to put in PB to start so that I can remember which funds that I've been creating here. Watershed. Let's do something like that. Okay, so this is the fund name. This is what you're going to use to refer to it internally. There is a a public name field here. This is what people not in the organization should see. So if you can use this for letters that need to be generated, and also people who can log in through your portals. This is the name that they would see instead of the internal name. So they can be the same, and they don't have to be the same. People who can create new funds, like myself here, have a lot of power to fill in a lot of these fields, even though, so you need to know what they're for and why they're used and which ones you should ignore. So fund code is going to be generated for you automatically when the fund opens. So at the moment,
Hi,
we don't
I'm just
need
calling.
to.
I spoke with someone yesterday about my daughter Maya Nevin and an appointment.
Yeah. So we don't want to fill that in right now. That's going to be automatically generated based on an algorithm to make sure that there is make sure that it's done properly. So you leave that one blank. Parent fund, obviously, if this needs to be a child of some other, you can fill it in here. Let's see, I'm going to leave that blank for the moment. Which organization this belongs to, and I have this weird, so this is either TCI or TCF. So you'll need to choose that to start with as well. Fund type. This is also required. Fund department. And the restriction options for this fund. So all these are required basically because they are necessary for NetSuite as well. So before these can even be, before the fund can be opened and processed properly. So overhead percentage, my understanding is that usually there's a 6% overhead, but this is where you'd set that. Okay. Those are the primary kind of piece of information that you're going to need. I'm going to scroll down here for a second. These fund management fields, this section can be edited by people who are designated as fund managers, which is different from people who are administrators. So I'm a fund administrator here, which means I can change anything. We also have a set of people who can manage these fields here in this section. We scroll down the balances. So you can leave this blank. This should be updated nightly with the actual balance from NetSuite and the timestamp. You can fill it in now if you need to and you know it. You have the power to do that here, but theoretically this should be done automatically. So the additional amount reserved. This is, for instance, a minimum balance, something like that. So if you need $1,000 minimum balance on this fund in order to be able to withdraw from it, you'd put in that amount here. The rest of these we're going to leave alone right now. You know, these are to track fund closure steps. It's going to automatically track whether it's active or not, and the NetSuite ID is going to be filled in later as well automatically. So I'm going to go back up to the top here on this top right section. So the owner right now is me. You can't change this while you're creating it, but once we've saved this, we'll talk about the options here. The owner is somebody internal or an external advisor, and making that person an owner allows them to actually manage some of this information and see their fund information through the portal. So we'll get to that a little bit later. You can see here the status for a new fund defaults to proposed, which is basically just a holding status for, meaning this is one that's proposed, it is not open yet, it is not confirmed, anything like that. You can't create any transactions against a fund in this proposed status. We'll go through opening the fund in a few minutes. Obviously, you'll leave this fund date opened as well, because that will fill in automatically later. Let's see. So the these fields here about anonymity, these also have, you know, help text over them to help you decide whether you want to use these. This means the fund shouldn't be included in any external references, etc. And the grants from this fund should be forced to be anonymous as well. This one means that that grants from this fund will default to being anonymous, but you can change that. You can override that when you make funds. When you make grants from this fund. So that's defaults them to anonymous. This checkbox here, it will create a record for this fund that is visible to other people in the portal when they want to create grants. So if you don't check this box, other people like external advisors who want to give to this fund won't see it. It won't be available to them. They don't know it exists. If you check this box, it means it is something that they can choose from to give to. And we'll see how that works later. These three here, I'm not actually sure what the original purpose for these was. I think these are used for migrated data from NAV. I'm
That's
not
correct.
sure about the campaign field myself.
Yep. So, Peter, I just want to take a quick little break here, and there are a few people with some questions. Some I can answer, and maybe others you can. So Shayla is asking, will there be a chance to drop the designation code from NAV in the future so that funds are listed by their name first and not their old NAV code? I suppose. I don't know why you would want to do that, but we could talk about that. That was not a requirement, but we certainly could discuss it. Then someone, I believe in Toronto, is asking, what does the restriction option field mean? That simply identifies whether the fund is restricted, unrestricted, or externally restricted. So this essentially is a fund class, identifies the class of fund so that money cannot be spent for operations and general purposes. It has to be for a specific purpose.
There is no specific functionality that's based on this.
Right.
So it's informational as far as the system goes.
It's mostly informational, actually, for NetSuite.
Okay.
And then Sarah is asking, is there a formatting convention for the fund name? Should each word be capitalized? Do we do or don't put a fund at the end of the name? There are no restrictions or anything around that. You could put fund at the end of it if you wanted to, I suppose. It's up to you guys how you want to use the naming conventions. There are some limitations in terms of the field length, so that might be a consideration. And so it's up to the organization, however you want to do it. And if you want to standardize that across, then we can do that. Let's see. Peter, Chelsea is just saying that the volume on your NQ is fading in and out for her. So I don't know what kind of a microphone you're using. Can we link pipeline stage opportunities to funds that are at the proposed stage? I don't think so. I could be wrong about that, but Peter?
Let me think for a second. I'm not sure. Actually, nobody's brought that up before. I think there may not be a reason that we couldn't do that, although I'm not sure if something prevents it now. You can't, you shouldn't be able to submit a grant or mark up opportunity payment as paid against a fund that isn't open, but potentially, but it may be possible to let people create pipeline records when they're not open yet. I'm not sure if that's actually possible right now.
Okay. We can talk some more about that. If I assume that question is from Jonathan and his group, so we should talk about that. Ryan is asking, he assumes that all TCI funds and projects are restricted. The answer is yes. However, when the fund is created, it cannot know that until you choose the correct restriction option. There's no validation on the restriction option field.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you choose TCF or TCI as the TC org on this record, you still have to choose the correct restriction option, okay?
Yeah, and all that is, one reason why there's only a few people who create these, because they should know what they're doing here.
Yeah. Okay.
And obviously, this wouldn't be something that's happening 10 times a day either. So, all right, let's save this new fund that I created. Okay. We've created a new fund. It is in a proposed status. Adam, are you on the line?
Yes.
This might be an opportune time to talk about the fund roles.
Sure. All right. We're going to sort of swing to opportunities and back and forth between funds. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right. So first thing to look at is an existing fund. And so an existing fund will have multiple, okay, actually take a step back. So with our funds, we have child funds and parent funds. Parent funds were our programs, child funds projects. And so if we look at a parent fund, that parent fund that houses all of the child funds underneath it is going to have a bunch of fund roles. And so we can see historically you had quite a lot on any given fund. Oh, I might have gotten that backwards between projects and programs. Sorry about that. But historically, you had a lot of fund roles on a fund. And essentially, what's going on is this information is going to be very important on the opportunities that are related to them. And people are going to need to receive notifications around opportunities and payments that come in related to funds that they have some sort of oversight on. And creating a fund role is pretty simple. You just click on it, the new fund role. You are going to link that to a contact record, so whoever that contact is, and you're going to give them a role. And so this is all going to be in documentation, but I'm about to start listing off some pretty complicated logic around, or at least say which ones are important at the moment for automation purposes that get updated on the opportunity and that then get notifications around them.
So I believe, by the way, is there restrictions on who can create fund roles or change them for funds?
There is not, as far as I am aware.
Yeah, I don't know of any either. So go ahead.
All right. So different logic for TCI and TCF, but for TCI, the big ones here are project coordinator. That is going to have some automation around it. The project director as well. So those two, and project specialist. Those three are going to drive some information on the opportunity, and I'll show that in a second. And the other one, which is sort of a new one that didn't exist previously, is the secondary contact. And so those four for TCI are going to be important. And if we look at an opportunity that is tied to one of those funds, we see that some information already got populated on certain of these donation role fields. And so the project coordinator from this fund went to the development coordinator. The project director went to the director, and the project specialist went to the development manager. We have sort of simplified the naming on the opportunity to work for both TCI and TCF. That's why we sort of see different names here than we do on the fund roles themselves. Again, this is all going to be documented. Don't expect anybody to memorize this. I personally don't have it memorized. I have it written down in front of me right now. So it's definitely something that refer to the documentation if this does become confusing. Now, for TCF, well, let's take a step back again. TCF has two sets of logic. It depends if the type is DAF midterm or DAF long-term or not. So if it's one of those two types underneath the TCF, TC org, then the fund roles that are important are DAF program manager and fund advisor and secondary contact again. So those three are going to be the ones for donor advised funds. For non-donor advised, we've got program associate, development manager, director, program officer, and secondary contact again. So these are the ones among this long list that are going to have automation around them. What I want to say from here is the status is critically important around this. So if someone is a current project coordinator, you would have to make sure that their status is current. Start dates, end dates always help for that type of thing. Once somebody is marked as former, they will no longer populate the information directly on the opportunity for funds related. And so if you mark somebody as former, you're going to want to go in and create a new fund role for that new project coordinator, so that new opportunities coming in will be marked to the appropriate person that's taking over. Looks like there was a question.
Yeah, Adam.
I can cover that.
Yeah. Which
When you're
roles
done.
edit the fund management section? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll cover that when you're done, Adam.
Okay. So to make life even a little bit more complicated, what happens with these roles once they're on the opportunity? These roles will let these people know when payments are made against these opportunities. And so for the director role, whenever an opportunity or a payment really comes in of any amount, that director is going to be notified that a payment came in. It'll tell them what amount, and it'll tell them what fund, and let them know that it came in. If for the development manager, it's only for donations of 1,000 or more. actually payments of 1,000 or more. So if it's a multi-payment donation, multi-payment award, whatever it happens to be, that would, each and every payment that comes in would, of 1,000 or more, would trigger an email notification to that development manager. DAF program manager would get notified of payments of 1,000 or more as well. And secondary contacts get notified of payments of any amount. All right, looks like there's a question. Will there be push notifications to directors of TCI projects? And if so, yep, that is the director field here. That is sort of whenever a payment comes in of any amount, they will get notified. So that is sort of the overview of how this works. Definitely refer to the documentation on it to get the exact logic behind all the sort of permutations of TC-org versus type and which roles fill in which fields on the opportunities that are related to opportunities that go to those funds. Former roles show up on the opportunity or fund. Former roles do not, so it's an interesting question. Former roles will get on an old opportunity that already exists. That former role, if you mark a role as former, will not update any of those historic opportunities. So it will show on those historic opportunities. It will also show on the related list on that fund. You'll see a whole list of people who were, nope, looking at the wrong one here. The related list of fund roles, you will see everybody who had or has a fund role. Project coordinator, development coordinator receive a notification email. Project coordinator, development coordinator does not receive an email, according to our logic. Development coordinator, yep. All right, other questions around this?
Are there questions around fund roles for Adam?
There's definitely sort of a complex nest of logic, so the documentation will be very helpful when that is available in screen steps.
Yeah, and I know that because it's complex, you know, there may be some refinement as time goes on. This is our best stab at it because we did talk with a number of different folks about who should be notified, when they should be notified, what roles should be included. You know, this was essentially where we ended up. So what we can do is work with the system for a while, and if we need to, we can make some refinements to fund roles and notifications as we deem fit.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
No problem.
So we saw how a fund administrator can create a fund, and you saw a little bit about how people can create fund roles for the fund as well here. This is the fund that I created earlier. So like we said, any user in the system, your system administrator, such as Jeremy, can designate to be a fund administrator, and there will probably only be a few of those people. A fund manager is somebody who has the ability to edit these fields here in this fund management section. And again, that's just easily updatable list by the system administrator as to who has the permissions to change these fields right here. All the other fields are basically read-only to everyone all the time, except for the fund administrators who can go in and update things or change things as needed. Okay, so let's talk about a few things. So the owner is a internal person or an external advisor. So if you want to assign an external advisor to this fund and allow them to see it and see the transactions from it and things like that in their portal, you go in here and you change the owner of the record. So the external advisors are going to be customer portal users. And so that's what you would choose in this field. If you want it to be just another internal user, you want to change it to somebody else internally, that's fine. You just pick user here. This pick list, so if you choose user, then you get to choose from all of the internal people like Shayla or, right, anybody internal. But if you choose here, customer portal user, this is going to just show you people who have external fund advisor logins to your system. And I'll show you how you can create those. So these are people who have a very limited view of just their funds and transactions related to them. I'm just going to pick somebody here. All right, so that's the owner slash external advisor for this fund. So let's take a look at how you create those people. So I'm going to go over here and go to contacts. I'll open this in another here. So here is a contact for the contact that I just picked earlier. You can tell that this person actually has an active external account. If you click on here, and you can see here it says login as user or view their user. That tells me that they actually have an account that they can through the portal that they can log in as. If you want to create a new one, let's go to the account here. So this is the organization that this person works for. We can create a new contact here. Let's just say we'll create a new contact, and we'll say we'll put in the last name. Or two. Fills in the accounting already. We've talked a bunch about in other training sessions about how to create contacts here. I'm just going to put in the minimal information. Now, this is a new contact. If you want this person to be an external advisor and be able to log in through the portal, you have to enable them as a customer user. Not everyone may have the permissions to do this, but if you do, this is how you do it. So this is similar to if you were in the kind of grantee and grant making training session that we did. This is the same screen that you use to create any external user to give access to the system. In this case, we're not creating a grantee's record. We're creating a external advisor's record. So for external advisors, they are customer community plus users, and this will all be documented because you're not going to remember all the details here. And they will need to be, from this pick list, a advisor, customer community advisor. And that's going to give them the right roles and permissions for the organization that they work for. I'm going to do let's see. I'm going to give it here. So again, you need to have some sort of username that is not the same as the email address, but it needs to look like an email address. So you might want to come up with some sort of convention here about usernames. So this is going to be watershed to okay. So that's because it has to be unique. So the important things here are making sure you have the right license and the right profile. The role up here is going to have the organization that they work for, and whether you've set the time zone, whether you want them to get it to know about it right away, things like that. That's all here, and you'll need to make sure that you kind of the right people know what they're doing when they're creating users. This is going to take a user license in your system, and it's going to enable them right away to be able to log in to the portal. I'll save this. Okay. Yeah. Some of these things have to be unique. Okay. So I just created a external advisors login into Salesforce. And if we want to go over here, we can change our fund owner to that new user. Watershed 2. See, now they show up here. There we go. All right, so now we actually have created a fund and we've assigned a external advisor to it. Then one of the next things that we need to do here, I'll show you how to log in and see this in just a minute, but first we probably want to activate this fund. Right now it's only in a proposal status, so if we want to open this fund and make it official, well, the right way to do this here is to click on the Open the Fund button. So this is going to generate a fund code, and it's going to send this information to NetSuite as well. There's a bunch of logic that needs to run behind the scenes, and it does some checks to make sure that the right information is set up. You will see a message here if it isn't, and it'll describe several pieces of information that you need to clarify and to go back and try again once you've done that. So this is the message that you'll see when it succeeds, right? New fund code has been generated. This triggers an automation to sync the fund to NetSuite. This is asynchronous, so it'll take typically a few seconds, and it should be that the fund status should be open after that. If it's not, you can just wait here for a few seconds or refresh the page. So let's click finish here. Yeah, so now we've got a fund code that's been automatically generated, and if we scroll down here, this is already in NetSuite. There's the identifier for it. And the status is now open. So now this fund is actually available for making grants to and receiving money into, or sorry, making grants to and from and receiving money into it. Let me pause there for a second. Any other questions about this so far? All right. So I think the next, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, because you did not choose a parent fund when you were creating the fund, it assumes that you are creating a parent fund. So if you had if you had selected the parent fund when you were creating it, it would have created a child fund.
Yeah, and we can actually do that here. We'll create a new child fund for this one. This is, you'll see it filled in the parent here. And let's see, did I put that in TCF? Yeah, okay. TCF, and give it a type and department. I'm not filling all these in perfectly. I'm just trying to pick one of these at random here, and then let's save this. Yeah, so now we create a child fund. Parent is here. If we go and look at the parent record, let's see, here's child funds, and you'll see it down here. If we go and activate this child fund, the fund code will look a little bit different for these. Open this fund. Yeah, so you'll see here, this one has the fund code of the parent plus a sequentially generated number. The parent fund is the fund code for these. This R, I believe, is generated from, is it this department field? I think that's right.
That's correct.
Yeah, I forget the exact logic that determines those, but it's auto-generated. Okay, so now we've got these two funds.
I think it's a combination, isn't it? The type and the department.
Maybe it is the type.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the type that determines what that starting prefix letter is on the fund code. There aren't any approvals involved here to create funds. There's only a few people who are fund administrators, and they need to know what they're doing.
Yep, there is no approval workflow here.
Okay, so the next thing we can do here is, let's see, we talked about fund roles. These are in NetSuite now, the overhead rates. Okay, so we have actually created another person here. So the funds, let's scroll down here. There are a few other pieces of information here, right? We've got fund rules. This opportunity, let me pull up a fund that actually has a bunch of info. It'll be easier here. I scroll down here. So here is a fund with a number of fund roles already set up. This one has multiple child funds in different statuses. And I think that's it on that one. But the opportunities that are created from funds, you'll see them here, as well as the individual allocations for the payments against those opportunities will show up on here as well. The grants that are made and the withdrawals that are coming, that are pulling money from this fund, will be here as well. So we'll create one here and we'll see it. Oh, right, that's what I knew. There's something here, right? So this fund is not anonymous, and it is also not publicly available, which means that other people who log in can't see this fund to give to. So you'll notice here there is a little list here that says when the funds are publicly available, they've become what's called in the system an eligible recipient, because it's something that somebody can give to as a recipient. So if I'll show you that in the portal here. So now that we've created these funds and watershed protection, here we go.
That's a good question. Peter, maybe we could just answer this one before you move on. So this publicly available, if it is checked, means that another person could another fund advisor or a funder could log into their community, and they could initiate a grant to this fund because it was marked as publicly available. The question that Natalie has is, does that need to be checked in order for the same thing to happen through Click and Pledge?
No, I don't know what I don't know what
Might be
how
a
things
question
are
for
shown in
Adam.
Pledge.
Yeah.
For Click and Pledge, you're just basically building the forms through the form tool to whatever fund you want.
So
I don't think
this being marked makes no difference to Click and Pledge.
correct.
Yeah.
Right. Some web administrator, somebody has to actually generate a giving form for a fund, which they can do that for any one of these. Technically, they need to know what they're doing, obviously, so they don't create one for a closed fund or something like that, right?
And then Ryan's asking, or for grants, intercompany, say TCF to TCI. No, it makes no difference. It doesn't have to be publicly available to make those kind of transfer grants.
Yeah, this is just visibility. Basically, this controls visibility in the portal for people to be able to give to these internal users here, like ourselves. You can give to any of the open grants.
So it's a bit of a
Sorry,
misnomer.
funds.
Yeah, it's a bit of a misnomer. It's not really publicly available. It should really read available in portal. And we can always change that language, but that's essentially what it means, right?
Yeah. All right, so let's take a look here at what it does look like. If I go to my advisor here. All right, so this was the advisor record that we had set up just a minute ago. I have the ability here to log in as one of these advisors. Not everybody's gonna be able to do this, but this will actually let us see what the advisor portal looks like. So as an advisor, when they log in, you know, we've got a starting page here that you can add content to yourselves, decide what you want in there. There's this little guy here, which also shows up similar to what you see when you're logged in as the left side toolbar. So the important parts here are, right, the eligible recipients. So this is a list of all of the funds and also organizations that have been marked as publicly available. So if we go back and look at the fund, right, this checkbox here, but there is also a checkbox on here, North Canada, on accounts. There is the same checkbox here. So if this is an organization that people can give to through Tides, you check this box, it will also show up in the portal as available. And I'm going to basically just do that. All right. If we go back into the portal here, you'll see it show up here. What was this? North Canada Watersheds Defense. So if I refresh this, should.
You just have to click the N in the over on the top there, and it should be in the sub.
Oh yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
North Canada Watershed. So that just showed up.
Yeah.
So those two checkboxes control whether they're, and if you uncheck it, it will disappear. So it's pretty much that simple. And now it's gone. So these are recipients that can be chosen in the portal. So I'm logged in here as an advisor. And if I want to give to one of these, if I want to grant as an advisor to one of these funds, this is all the information that they can see. you can control, system administrator can control what people can see here. So of all the fields here that you can, sorry, I'll pull up the, where was the fund that we had just created? Of all the fields here for these funds, external people can't see all this information. They can just see whatever you control here, where they are, their name, their mission. You can put a few other things here if you want to. But basically, they're choosing one of these to give to. So let's just do that. Create a new grant. Grant name. So PB grant from portal. I already did this once. So we'll give $1,000, and we're going to give from a fund that we can control. So people in the portal here only can see their own funds. If let's go over here. So here's a list of funds. They can only see the funds here that they have access to directly because they are the fund advisors on the record. So this is all the information they can see about their own fund. And you'll notice there's no edit button here. If we go here and we want to give from our own fund, right? This is the fund that you're giving from. You choose your own fund here. Whether you want it to be anonymous, primary contact, and then a bunch of miscellaneous fields here that they can fill out. Now you need to pick who you're giving to, right? So again, the names here and the labels you guys can easily change, but this is basically an eligible recipient that's already been vetted by TIDES as an eligible recipient. And the people the organizations that show up in this list are the same ones that show up here on this tab. And that's all they need to do for the moment. So let me save this and I'll show you a little bit more in a minute.
So two things here while Peter is going to the next screen.
Mm-hmm.
This grant is not actually a grant yet. It's just being put into a draft status. And ultimately, the responsibility or the ability to create an official grant, it lies with someone like Mary. This person can only recommend a grant and fill in some basic information. The actual grant has to be vetted through us. Also, you may notice that in the fact that Peter chose an eligible recipient, but the person who's recommending the grant doesn't necessarily need to choose an eligible recipient. They can choose a custom recipient, and they can put that information further down on this page where it says new grantee.
Yeah, I'll demonstrate that in a minute. So you'll see here, I tried to make this grant for $1,000, but it's saying you can't do that because you're going to make your fund balance negative. Because you'll notice when we were in the portal here, let's see, who did we give this from? Our fund is PB Watershed Protection, right? Yeah, this one. We scroll down. There's a zero balance here. So I'm a fund administrator when I'm logged in. I can just update the balance to a lot. Let's just do that. $100,000. Okay. Now, if I switch back over here to somebody who's logged in through the portal trying to give $1,000, should be able to save this now. Great. Okay. So I just said I want to grant money from my fund to Farms at Work. And you'll see here, we've got the amount. It generated a grant number automatically because it knows who it's to and who it's from. And it also has a status of requested. So this, if you remember from we were doing grant making training before, there is grants, there are distributions, which are the payments, outgoing payments to the recipients for the grants, and there are withdrawals, which are the withdrawals of money from the fund that is funding it, right? It automatically created a grant number, it created a distribution, if you look at here, right? And then it created a withdrawal from my fund for this grant. So there's a few things here that you'll note, right? There's no scheduled date. There's no ability to edit this, etc. So if we go back, that's because I'm in the portal and this is a requested grant now. So somebody will have to come in Salesforce and actually take a look at that. So if we go to grants.
That's good, because Mary is asking, so if a grant request is put into the portal, does it show up under grants, or how do I find out about it?
Yeah, so here is the grant tab that you'll see, and you can create all kinds of, list views here about what you want. A bunch of these are just my own and trying to test things out, but I also created one for requested. So here is a list of all of the grants that are currently in the requested status. Let's pull it up. So this is requested. So there isn't, so a lot of this info wasn't necessarily, obviously this wasn't filled out by you, so it's missing a bunch of info, but it does have the basics and enough to get started for you to start deciding how to process this. And if you go here to edit this, right, the status here is now requested, and you can put it in a verification status, which means you're working on it. And if I go back into the portal on this other browser tab here, I'll refresh this. Now this is in verification and so forth. So from this point on, it's basically you doing all the regular grant making stuff that we did a training on last week. But that is how somebody uses the portal to request a grant from their own fund to a recipient that you already know about. They can also, as Eric said, make requests to make grants to organizations that you don't know anything about. We'll do that next. So let me look at the comments here. Can we add more info on the portal, like opportunity balances, travel? Yeah, so any of the information that we have, you can expose. Generally, you could expose in the portal if we want to. That's just up to you guys as to how to tweak that. So once all the grant info is entered by the fund advisor, are we able to send that grant record on to grantees to complete the project info section? So we're talking about inviting grantees to fill out a grant invitation, basically, right? An application or invitation. Yeah, so we can do that. We could try and do that here, actually. Recipient name. So this recipient will need a grantee login to the portal in order to do that. If we come over here and we adjust the status to invited, that should make it available to the recipient organization. So this one doesn't have an organization in it, so it's not. We wouldn't be able to do it from this one. But if this goes to an organization, you can create a grantee portal user there. They will log in and they will see it. Maybe we could try that here if Yeah, sorry, I didn't set up that scenario, so we need to go through and create a bunch of organization records and portal records. Maybe we can catch that at the end here if we have time. Okay, let's keep going ahead here. If we can circle back to that at the end, maybe that'll be helpful. Let's see. So the next step here was creating a grant from here, and then we talked about I guess we talked about approving the grants already in the other training session, right? The fund. Oh, right. Okay. So I wanted to make sure we covered the rest of the things here in the advisor portal, right? So they can see their grants, and they'll be able to see all of the grants that have been made from their funds, and there are these are ones that they'll be in any status, right? They could be history, they could be requested, they could be in process, etc. But they'll see them all here. We can also see their own funds. I think we showed that already, right? So this is if they have one fund or multiple funds, they'll show them here. They'll also be able to see grant reports. Let me see if I had any in here. That view is not right, so I guess we'll have to tweak that. If we come in this grant here, if we create a grant report for it, we'll give it a status of scheduled, and I'll put in a due date here of sometime in the future. All right, so this is a grant report for that grant, I believe. If we come over here and yeah, we just need to fix this name up here, but you'll see here back in the portal, this advisor can now see grant reports for their own grants. And you'll see again here, there's no editability, but they can see them and they'll be able to see the files that are attached to them. So if there are report documents that come back and the grantee attaches them, they'll be able to see them here. And they can upload the files here as well. Okay, so let's go back into Salesforce for you. We could talk about, I think, Eric, you had something in here about fund types and consolidation. Is that
Oh,
what that was referring to?
yeah. So if you want, Peter, let me just call up for the purposes of everyone's information here. I'm just calling up my OneNote. Funds. You might need to share. I might need to share my screen. So just a moment here.
Yeah, while you're doing that, maybe I can set up
Yeah.
a grantee.
So essentially what happened was when we started, figuring out what fund types do we need and which ones we no longer use, because there were a couple that we no longer use, and where can we consolidate the funds. We sat down with finance and went through a lot of that stuff. And I'm just trying to find it here. So give me a second. fund mapping. Actually, I know where it is. Hang on a sec. I'll show you it in the help system that we've created. Screen steps. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Hang on a sec. All right, so this is the help system that you're eventually going to be seeing linked directly from Salesforce. And we did a bunch of consolidation on the fund types. So previously in NAV, a giving fund has been repurposed as being either a DAF midterm or a DAF long-term. Purpose funds are now called strategic programs. Projects, obviously projects, no change there. We had a bunch of legacy funds that were DAFs, and we still have to insert some of these funds. All of the legacy funds that had a prefix of F are now strategic program funds. Collaborations remain the same, internals remain the same. However, finance has said to me that they may want to reclassify this post go live, so stay tuned. General, of course, the operations funds such as G003, all the prefixed change capital funds have now been changed over, and they're going to be inserted still. They're going to be called change capital donor revised. And then there's fee for service. So some bit of consolidation and remapping that went on based on what finance was looking for. And that is essentially how the mappings are taking place.
All right. Okay. I think I can walk through a what it looks like for to have a grantee fill out a grant request. So let me try that. Okay. All right, so let's go into advisor here. All right, so I'm going to log in as an advisor, log into the community as this advisor. So let's create a new grant here. This is going to be to I don't remember all the spelling, but let's say we're gonna get $1,000. Okay, and I want it to come from my fund. So remember, I'm logged into the portal here, and I have one or more funds. If I don't know who I'm giving to, right, or let's say if I go to look up, or try and look up some organization, then I don't see them here. Okay. I can come down here, fill out, okay, so fill out the new grantee information here and below. So, I know who I want to give to, but I don't think they're in your system. So this is what I'm going to request, friends of. And, oh, I think I know their CRA number, maybe, maybe not. Here's their URL. All this information. This can be easily tweaked to ask them what you need to know, but this is basically, if you don't know, if you can't just pick one that we already know about, here's your options for filling out you know, who it should actually go to. All right, so let's save this. All right, you'll see here we've got very similar thing, right? This is, it's requested, it's coming from my fund, and here's who I think it should go to. So in Salesforce, if sorry, I need to get the right window opened up here. Okay, so if I go in here and I'm going to look at, so now I'm logged into the system as somebody internal, and I'm going to go look at grants and look at the requested grants. Here's a new one that's been requested. Let's open this up. So you'll see here, there is no recipient fund or organization that was supplied, but there is a custom recipient name here that was put in by the person who requested it. So basically your job here is to say, well, we don't just give to some random organization, right? You can't just list whoever you want. You need to vet this organization. And so I think I know that we have a Friends of Clayoquot Sound organization in our system. Let's actually look it up. Oh, here's a bunch of them. Ah, there they are. Okay, great. Let's pick them up. So now we already know they're there. If they weren't already there, you'd need to go and create that organization, make sure that they're eligible, make sure you know who they are, that kind of stuff, right? So here, we were actually able to clarify who they're asking for. Oh, we already know about them. Great. So let's actually say that now we want that organization to be invited to fill out some information about this grant. So let's put it to invited here. So now I'm going to have to go and log in as a grantee that belongs to this organization. I believe I have one here already. Here we go. Okay. So here is a grantee I'm going to log in as. And this organization so you can see here, because I put that into invited and it belongs to this grantee's login users person's organization, they see it in here and they've got an invited status. So they can edit this, say, oh, well, 10% of this is going to political activity. Here's our purpose, here's our project plan, et cetera, et cetera. This set of fields here, you can control. These are, a number of these fields here are, well, we'll see in just a second. There's a demonstration field that we had put in earlier too, so we'll only want to tweak a few of these, and we can save this. All right, still invited. If you actually want to submit this and say, yeah, here we go. I want to submit this. We can have them attached documents. I just don't have that enabled here, but we can turn that on. That's very easy. So they can, they'll be able to upload documents as well. All right, let's submit it. All right, so now it's been submitted and it is put into a draft status, which is, if you recall, a status that you guys used before when creating new grants internally. So now it's basically been requested by the funder, clarified by yourself, invited to the grantee, submitted by the grantee, and now if we go into Salesforce, we can refresh this. You see here now this is in draft status. So the next thing for you is to verify everything. See, here's the info they filled out. And for you, again, this is basically just now starting to go through the approval process here. Put it in verification status and start approving it. Mark it as verified, submit it, etc. Okay, any more questions about that? It does require, obviously, that that whole process there required somebody to have created a fund, assigned it to an external advisor, created a user for that external advisor, also created a grant to another organization, set up that organization as a grantee so that they can actually go in and see the grants that they've been invited to or that belong to their organization as well. I think, let's see, pull up this fund again. If we scroll down here, yeah, so this is the fund that we have been using, the parent fund with one child fund. And you'll see now here, if we scroll down, there are a few withdrawals from this fund as well that you'll be able to see. This is the actual list of all the individual withdrawals that are coming out of this fund and their statuses and their amounts. And if we scroll up here, you'll see too, there are these total outstanding withdrawals. These aren't considered outstanding, I believe, until the grant has actually been approved. You know, I think that wasn't the case. I think we actually wanted these to be encumbering amounts.
That's right. So
on this fund, yeah. So
yeah.
there might be some slight logic problem there that I need to tweak. Let me make sure I put that in there. Verify pending withdrawals. That's probably
Mary,
a quick
I just
fix.
want to ask you a quick question. I'm going to take you off mute. So would you want encumbrances against a fund based on the fact that a grant may be in draft status? Or would you want that encumbrance to only happen once the grant had been approved?
Well, yeah, well, they're encumbered. Should probably only be when it's approved.
Yeah, that might
Or
have been
even
how we set it up.
released. I don't know. Released. But in order for it to be released, there should be some logic that says, oh, there's enough money in that fund to make the grant of that amount.
Which is
but if they have with payments in the future that are scheduled from that fund for other grants, those need to be encumbered so that, oh, we can't make another grant
right.
because they've already got a lot of encumbrances already.
Okay, let's have more discussion around that on a separate thread. But yeah, worth looking at.
Yeah, so if we actually edit this grant, can actually submit it, and I can actually, because I'm over here, I think I can actually approve it here. Well, let's see. So if we could look at the, it's been submitted now. Yeah, and it's not outstanding yet. But if I do approve it, So this grant's now approved. Yeah, well, there must be something wrong there. I need to tweak that logic about what it considers outstanding. But so it sounds like you wanted to, I'm not sure. Did you come to a conclusion there about how you want it to work? Or we just say we need to talk about that later?
We need to have a
Okay.
discussion offline on that.
Okay. So we've opened grants, we've created roles, we've assigned it to advisors, we've requested grants from the funds. So now if we're looking at a fund here, at some point these will close as well. So the fund administrators will have the permissions to actually mark these as closed, and that process also starts from Salesforce. 1 second here. I am trying to get things out of the way so that I can actually get this logged in. So these are, I will show you what this looks like. Hold on 1 second. I got to switch around some things to get this set up. Okay. All right, so here, whoa, too many screens here. All right, so in NetSuite, you'll see here we've got these designations that were auto-created when we opened those funds. So here is the one for the parent fund that we created, that we were also creating new grants against. And you'll see here we've got the same designation number, and it's also got a Salesforce status of opened. If we, as a fund administrator, you can actually start closing this fund as well. That's what these closing date fields are here for. There's no restriction or validation or functionality in the system specifically around these. These are whatever you want them to be. We can add and remove these as needed. But these over here, I should say, these are tracked automatically
Peter?
and filled in.
Peter,
Yep.
we're not seeing where you're pointing. We're seeing the previous screen on the fund.
Yeah. Okay. Now something paused it just a second. Okay. Sorry. So here's the fund that we were looking at. As we go through and close these, it's going to fill in these dates here, and you can use these fields to track your own progress around actually closing the fund. So we can just fill in one of these, and let's mark this as closed to donations. You'll see here in NetSuite right now, this is the record for it. It says that the Salesforce status is open. But if we go back to Salesforce and we save this, we scroll down, it's filled in the close to donations date automatically, so that that gets stamped. And it should be, if we refresh this here, this might take a few seconds. It may take a few seconds here. Oh, and you know what? I think I may have disabled some of the things in the sandbox. This status goes to close to donations as well. There is actually oh, sorry. These statuses will track with the Salesforce status. So I think it's not doing it in the sandbox because I turned a bunch of things off yesterday, but these are closed to donations. You can go in and mark these also as inactive, which is meant to be, I believe the intent for that was that it should be closed for all purposes, but it's not actually closed yet. But you guys would probably know better exactly.
That's just
how to put
to
that on.
that's just to clean up any final transactions that may be forthcoming, but there's no money essentially going in or out unless it is a pending transaction that needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, the system will prevent you from making any more grants from it and things like that at this point. And then you go in and mark it as closed as well. So the functionality around closing it is pretty basic. You can fill in you fill in your own milestone dates here. It's going to fill in the stamp these with the dates where you're changing these statuses at the top, and then it will sync this Salesforce status as well in NetSuite. Okay. Trying to think of anything else we were missing here. I think we covered everything.
Yeah, you did on my list.
Yeah.
So I guess what we can do is take some more questions. Mary says, should we have some logic that says you can't close a fund if there is a fund balance? That's a finance question. So maybe I will leave that with either Janya or Chris to answer.
Yeah, and also, there's only, 3 or 4 people who are fund administrators. So only you and a couple other people can change these statuses anyway. So, at some point, people need to know what they're doing.
Okay, Natalie is asking, can you talk more about parent and child funds? Which, if any, fields auto-populate? And I'm assuming you're talking about when you create a child fund. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, let's see, child funds, new fund. So if you try and create a new child fund here, the only thing that really auto-populates is the parent fund. I didn't get any rules about,
Well, and the
how
fund
these
code.
things need to work.
Yeah.
The fund code will get generated, yeah, when you open the fund, based on the parent. That's right.
Were you looking for other fields? You said, Natalie's saying some projects have 10 or more programs, which would mean 10 or more child funds. Do we need to maintain each fund record? So, for example, when fund roles change or recognition. So fund roles are all controlled from the parent fund level. Adam can confirm that. And recognition you could change if you wanted to on the child fund record. I think you might have a necessity to do that maybe sometimes. But I'm not quite sure about the recognition, whether or not that cascades down from the parent.
No, none of this does. It's all up to you. I mean, if we need to, you can certainly. So there's 2 issues there. One is, do you want it to default to the same thing, or do you want it to be the same thing?
Okay.
So,
I've taken Natalie off mute.
Way.
So Natalie, it looks like you've got a couple of follow-ons. So why don't you go ahead? Don't forget to take off. Oh, you have no mic. Okay. Can you maybe sign it if I turn on your camera? Do we have to maintain, or like when we close a project, do we have to close each child? That's a good question. If we close the parent fund, do all the children close as well?
No.
No, they do not.
They could. We could. But then you've got there's a whole bunch of stuff you have to check to make sure that that's, that can happen.
Yeah, that's certainly something we could add in later. If we wanted to, we could have those field statuses cascade down.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie's saying let's talk some more about it. In 90% of the cases, we would want it all linked. Okay, so we can talk about it for sure. Any other questions for Peter or Adam?
All right.
Okay. Obviously, we need to augment the documentation. I think, Peter, we're going to have to do a little more documentation around the communities piece because it's sort of like basic setup that's currently in our documentation around that. But some of the other stuff you showed today isn't in there yet. So we'll probably have to include it.
All right.
When will the documentation be available? Well, I can make what we have available later today. I'm just, I've had some issues going back and forth with Adam on this, trying to make it available. But he apparently found a fix yesterday, so I'm going to try and apply that today. And then I'll show you where the link is from within Salesforce.
One thing I can show you here as well. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a more of an advanced feature here, which you may or may not get a lot out of, but I just wanted to point it out. So if you're looking at a fund here, and this is going to be the same, if you're looking at grants as well. For people who are fund advisors, there's a sharing button here that shows you generally who specifics around how this record is shared out. If we go back here, right, this is a fund that we created. We assigned it to this person as an advisor, as basically an owner of the record. If you click on this sharing button as an internal user here, you can actually see that there's a specific rule here that's sharing it out to this person. So if you're ever unsure as to whether there are some special sharing to advisors going on, you can take a look there. Now this won't show information about grantees and their users because that sharing works a little bit differently, but I just wanted to point this out as a possible piece of information for you if you're trying to troubleshoot some things in the future. I believe at the moment, all the internal users can see all the records, but if you start adding rules about who can see which things, then that sharing button too will become more useful.
Okay, a couple more questions, Peter. Can we see all the opportunities to child funds on the parent fund record?
Not at the moment, no. But certainly something that could be set up.
Okay. And then from Shayla, can we talk about the difference between grant reports and reports? And you can remind me what the difference is. Well, reports are reports within Salesforce that you generate on Salesforce data. Grant reports are reports submitted by the external grantees. They may have due dates, they may not. But essentially you can link them to distributions so that unless you receive a report from a grantee and you store it with the record, that withdrawal cannot be made on the distribution. So all of that is built in as validation on the system. So there's a scheduled report right now that you see on the screen. It's linked to a due date over on the right-hand side, to a grant, and to a particular distribution. If necessary, it says dependent distribution right underneath status. So you could say, I'm not going to release any funds in this distribution until I mark this report as having been received.
Yeah, the use of the word report is maybe somewhat confusing here. Reports, the term report is, reports that you can build to analyze your own data, but also a grantee needs to report back to you, and that's what this is. This is the record resembling the info that they're going to report back to you about their the grant they've been given. You can certainly change the lingo, the label for this, if you can think of something better. All right.
Okay. Thanks very much, Peter. Appreciate it. And Adam and Gerald, and because I know Gerald's been lurking in the background, observing. So we have some good feedback from people who are asking for perhaps some new features and some improvements to the system. Certainly we're going to put them into our list. If anybody has any further questions, please feel free to forward them to me anytime in the next day or two. And once again, as soon as that documentation is up and running, I'll send everybody a notification and let you know how to get to it. Okay?
Eric, are there, we're recording these videos. Are there links to these that are also going to be in ScreenSnaps?
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
I might have copied you, but if I didn't, I certainly can send you the links to the other recordings that have already been done.
Cool. That'd be great.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. And a little patience here. We're still working through some integration issues. I know Peter's busy working on those while he isn't talking about. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye for now.